All right, welcome back. This is the week you missed. It is June 3rd. I feel like 2 years ago, June 3rd was a pretty wild time we were at. Right now, June 3rd, it's still a pretty wild time we're at. I feel like it's just a lot different wild time. We got a special guest today, though, Sydney. Sorry, remind your last name, Sydney, or unless we don't need to say your last name if you don't want.
Yeah, no one knows my last name.
Yeah, no, your last name is listed right there. I don't know if it's listed in the actual recording. I'm Jeremy. That's Todd. We got a special episode today, though, because we have a guest. I don't think we've ever done a guest before. We're going to try and have it more often. I think it's a fun little dynamic, adds to the whole element of everything. We'll get right into everything, though. So what I am going to share this week, I feel like I share a lot about Elon Musk, but he's always in the news. He's easy to talk about. He's controversial, and a lot of things that he does kind of applies to a number of things. So a couple of days ago, I believe he wrote a letter to his top board members or to the company saying that he's requiring workers to come in for 40 hours a week. If they don't come in for 40 hours a week, basically he's taking that as a resignation and they should be finding other jobs. So I have, I guess, two little elements I want to think about or talk about here. One, do you think this is good or bad for the economy or for work in general? Should companies be doing this? I think Google actually originally said they'll have a lot of work from home, but then they're kind of retracing on that and saying, no, I think we want people in. So a lot of companies seem to be doing that. But here's the other component. After we say, if you think it's good or bad, been hearing a lot of people saying, they don't really even think Elon is doing this for the 40 hours a week. A large reason they think he's doing it is because the economy is going down. Things don't look so great for Tesla right now. They're going to need to save money. What's a way to save money? Firing employees. What's a way to save more money? Well, if you get your workers to resign, you don't have to give them a severance as well. So you could kind of save twofold. Do you think that's actually the thing that he's doing? If he is that messed up? It's kind of smart. I feel like he's always playing 3D chess, but is that messed up or is that just playing the rules of the game? What do you guys think? We'll start with Sydney since we're new. I want to hear how she comes out.
I definitely think that you're on the right track, especially because just yesterday, I think he announced that he wants to lay off 10% of his company-wide staff. So yeah, it would certainly be in line with his motivations. I'm sure that having people back in the office has other positive consequences, but I can't imagine that the collaborative spirit is necessarily a driving factor behind what he's going for.
But do you think people actually work 40 hours a week when they are working from home?
Fuck no.
No. But I don't think people are I don't think the 40 hours that you spend in the office, you're working all 40 of those hours.
Yeah, that's very true. Do you think people work more when they're in the office though than when they're at home? And then I think another component people say is I forget what they call it, the water cooler effect, where you have just a lot more walk by. And if you have a team meeting of all the engineers, you have a team meeting of the social media managers, whatever, they're never going to really walk by each other if they're working from home. They'll have their Zoom meetings, that's it. But if they're in the office, they walk by the water cooler, they're more likely to collaborate on something that wouldn't likely have happened.
I think honestly, productivity at home comes down to the kind of person that you are. We can't fit all workers into a neat little box. I know when I'm working from home, it takes me 2 hours to get one task done because I'm standing up every 20 seconds to do something else. But then I know some people who have the hamster is just constantly running in that wheel and they can sit down and power through 5 hours of work, no problem. So I think really it boils down to just how you approach your workday. And I'm definitely a victim of the water cooler effect. I can spend all day chatting.
Yeah.
Well, and I think I think you're both completely right that I think this is a play by Elon Musk to sort of thin the herd at his company without needing to pay severance or unemployment benefits. Because he also announced, in addition to wanting to lay off 10%, they're doing a complete global hiring freeze as well. And basically Elon said because he's super nervous about the economy in the future. But to the point about whether or not work from home or work in office is more effective, I think it largely depends on the type of work you're doing. Like, look, if there's someone who's like a customer service representative who just has like a queue of requests coming in to answer, I think that job can be done at home, no problem. Or if you're like a booking agent for a hotel or travel or something, like you're just answering calls, you're doing the same type of tasks. In a company or a business where it is sort of a startup culture or there's a lot of innovation going on, I think that the cross-pollination of ideas and being in person and getting those sort of casual interactions is much more important. Like if you're in a company that is trying to build new things or try to figure out problems and to like come to an ultimate, final idea or final product, I think it's much more the value of having people be in person and being able to like see each other is much higher. And obviously Elon Musk is playing in like a highly innovative space.
Right. I think another component a little bit is for me, like working or managing in person or managing remotely, it's a lot easier for me to manage when people are in person. It takes a lot more like planning and forward thinking. So a lot of time it's just easier for the top management to like require it. But if you're a good manager, if you're planning, I think it's definitely possible to do a lot of things remote. But so what do you think happens? Do you think a lot of people will resign? Do you think a lot of people will take his bluff and actually go in and then just wait to get fired?
Well, the other funny thing is he tweeted, he said he's going to allow remote work, but only after you've worked 40 hours a week in the office already, which I think like, I love this new Elon Musk who's just like this like troll. Someone else replied to him and was like, what about if people don't like this? And I think his reply on Twitter was, well, they can pretend to work at a different company.
Yeah, well, I think people are a little curious what's going to happen with Twitter too, because Twitter, I think, is like completely work from home. And they're saying they're not going to change that at all. But if he's in charge, who knows if that'll continue.
Oh, well, Elon Musk is basically, if he takes over Twitter, he's firing probably about 30% of the staff like day one. So those people are toast no matter what.
That's so, very true.
What do you think people are going to come in the office, or you think they're going to flee?
Sydney, you think people are coming to the office or fleeing?
I mean, I think at the end of the day, most people are gonna go back to work. Like even people that are like, yeah, I can easily like go and get a job somewhere else. Like I have Tesla on my resume. God knows what else is on it. Like I'm hireable. I think people, for the most part, choose the path of least resistance.
I think there's a good amount of people though. I'd be curious to see the percentage, but I know like a friend of mine who did it for another company who actually moved during the last 2 years, thinking that work from home will be forever. And then as it's required to come back, they're like, do I move back or do I quit? I think that makes the decision a little harder. But if I was in the city it was in, I'd probably go back, at least for now. I'm not going to quit just because like my job requires me to come in. Because if you're working from home, it should be about the same amount of time it's taken up from you. It's not like it's that much different unless a commute is long. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But what do you got for us, Sydney?
Okay, so I have a Kanye West story. These are my favorites.
Another person huge in the news.
So Kanye West has a sports marketing firm, and he has recently signed his first two major athletes to it. One is Celtics' Jaylen Brown, who is absolutely dominating in the basketball finals this year. And the other is Aaron Donald, who is at this point playing for the Rams, although that is questionable because they have not yet worked out a deal for the upcoming year. So I'm always interested in what Kanye is getting up to, especially when he's deviating from kind of the realm where he created himself, which is, of course, music and fashion to some degree. And the curious thing about this is that nobody really has any details on what that means. Like, what does this partnership mean for these two athletes, right?
I was going to say that because you said sports marketing firm.
Yeah.
That's not a sports agency, right?
Right. And they've been very clear in the media that this does not interfere with the athletes' representation. As far as the leagues are concerned, it is truly just like, I think it probably comes down to like a name image issue. So like, I think Kanye went on record saying about Jaylen Brown that he wants to turn him into a superhero basketball player and that he's underappreciated in the sports world.
Superhero. I feel like that reminds me, didn't doesn't Kanye have like his high school basketball team, and like I feel like they had like a cover shoot where they all look like superheroes or something.
Yeah, so I'm kind of curious to see. It's called Donda Academy, and then the sports marketing firm is called Donda Sports. So I'm curious to see if these two are going to tie together. I'm sure that we're going to see a lot of the athletes at Donda Academy signing with Donda Sports as they are becoming eligible for that. But yeah, like it's just like, where's Kanye going with this? What do you guys think?
Yeah, so I got a few thoughts. One, definitely seems like a smart move. I feel like he always makes smart new moves and is probably gonna make a lot of money. But then I guess first thing that comes to mind, I wish I knew more about this. This might be a little bit of a change, or like it's a little not related, but I think it's related. Is Kanye is a billionaire, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why don't people give Kanye shit when he does things like, hey, why doesn't this billionaire do something better with his money and try and feed the homeless and this and that? Because when you hear about Elon Musk, that's all everyone says is, hey, why doesn't Elon do this? Why doesn't Elon do this? Kanye is a billionaire too. He can be capable of doing a bunch of stuff, but no one ever gives him flack, which reminds me also of another news story relevant this week is basketball player becoming a billionaire. LeBron James just became a billionaire yesterday. And another person, why doesn't everyone say like, hey, this guy's a billionaire, why isn't he doing more and helping more? That just like kind of came to my mind, but I'm curious what this is gonna look like. I feel like Kanye, just like Elon, plays 3D chess, and there's usually like something more to it than what it looks like. So I'm sure there's something else that's gonna come out soon that's gonna be a surprise and could be a complete flop, or it could be huge.
Yeah, I think that with Kanye, it's like, because I feel like, he's obviously a genius in many ways. He's obviously wildly successful in business outside of music in terms of fashion, shoes, all this other stuff. And like, I feel like this could it could be a wild success, but also it wouldn't shock me. Do you guys know that meme that goes around? It's from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It's Charlie standing in front of a wall with all the things on it, like the strings connecting it. Like I feel like the first meeting with these guys could be like that meme, and they just walk up being like, "What the hell is going on?"
I could completely see that.
So I feel like, and it's sort of like a complete non-answer because it's basically 50% wild success, 50% just chaotic mess. And either way, like I'm here for it because I think that. Like you said, like if this could end up with Kanye West doing some like wacky, weird like endorsements or like photo shoots with them dressed as like Iron Man or Wonder Woman or something, or like, who knows? But, and I do think, I think it'll be interesting to watch, and, it's just good to see him doing something besides beefing with Pete Davidson. So I'm happy that seems to be in the past.
This might be part of it. Who knows? Maybe Pete Davidson gets his own sports marketing firm and then hires his own superheroes, and then it's like Marvel versus Capcom, and then they get on celebrity boxing. Honestly, all of that, I'm like trying to come out with as outrageous as possible, and like these days, it's not the most unrealistic. Like that could happen. But yeah. Todd, what do you got for us?
So I want to talk about, there's been this growing idea, and it's been getting kicked around for years now, but this idea of programs that will allow teachers to be armed in the classroom. And I read an article the other day that said something like 57% of survey respondents favored arming teachers. And the wild part was it was something like 48% of Democrats in the poll also agreed with it, which sort of is mind-blowing if you think about it. And there was something like 67% of Republicans surveyed agreed with it. And like, look, the school shooting thing is terrible, and there needs to be things done. But I think arming teachers is a terrible idea, mainly because
it's giving teachers the option to arm them, or it's making at least one teacher like a school armed. What is there?
All these programs are sort of being implemented at a state level, so it would be all different levels or all different types of implementations more than likely. But I think the idea of like thinking back, like when I was in high school, I probably could have beaten the shit out of almost every single one of my teachers. I also know, like, while I was a good student, I was sort of like, a I was sort of a jerk sometimes. I'd push back. I'd show the teachers why they were wrong or why I'm smarter than them. And like there's so much tension in classrooms. Just the thought of either a student overpowering a teacher that they know is armed to take the gun, or frankly, a teacher having a really, really, really bad day. Like, look, on a long enough timeline with enough teachers armed, there would be cases of teachers brandishing the weapon at a student who is basically just yelling at them or being aggressive in the classroom and not really being a danger. Like, it's going to happen.
I'm definitely against teachers having guns for the most part, but just to play devil's advocate a little or come up with some questions is one, I don't think anyone would know. In most of the things I've seen, most of the people won't know who has a gun. It's just like any teacher has the possibility of having one, which I think is way better than like teachers having open carry. Because if you see a teacher with a gun, to me, that kind of makes that person more of a target. If a kid hates that teacher, if they don't have a gun, the kid might just do something dumb. But if the kid knows that that teacher has a gun and they want to do something, they're definitely bringing a gun because they know they are like kind of at a disadvantage if they don't. I don't know. But also I'd think that there'd be like extra big penalties for teachers if they did brandish their gun. I would hope if that's the case. But I think that they've actually piloted this program in a few places. And of course, like it's worked so far. But the thing is, I don't think people realize is most schools don't have shootings. So of course, like it's gonna work because like anything works for the most part because most schools don't have shootings. It's very like few. Even having one shooting is too many and needs to be prevented. But it's hard to say if something's worked or not because like, of course, it's gonna look like it. And then I think the last thing I guess I want to say, and then we'll hear what Sydney thinks is, so we had a officer at my high school who had a gun, but he was like a police officer and he had like an office at the school. And then we had like 10 security guards who didn't have guns, but they weren't police officers, they were security guards. There was like one actual officer. I was kind of thinking, I think I mentioned this last week even too, I like the idea of decentralizing police offices. So if like Philadelphia had 10 high schools and Philadelphia had 10 departments in the police district, just to be like easy to work with, one district per high school should have an office there. Instead of having an office in the central headquarters, have an office at headquarters. Would you be against that? So that like the school has guns there, but they're not necessarily for teachers, they're for like police, who I think should have guns. Although some people would argue against that too.
No, and I love that idea because I think one, it also integrates like, and I think you're right. Like you don't put like a whole department in a school, but having like satellite offices where there's like five officers just sort of do their daily work out of some school on like an annex.
Right.
They interact with the kids. It will hopefully help create better community bonds between these young kids and them realizing that cops are part of the community, and maybe it helps create some sort of better social cohesion there. What do you think, Sid?
I think that's a great idea. I think especially like if it could kind of be a bridge, like I think we all remember the DARE program back from when we were kids.
I love that program.
Yeah, it was super effective in my adult life.
Yeah.
But like, I think it introduces kids to police officers as not being like the enemy early on. And I think you're certainly kind of painting that picture in the media these days that they are. And it absolutely solves the issue of like, we need to have some kind of security forces in the event of a school shooting. But yeah, I think it definitely should be tied into some kind of like educational programs that are run by those officers who are in the schools. You obviously can't identify like where a school shooting is going to happen. I don't think there's any kind of statistics that like rank them as being higher risk than others. Like you're not seeing a correlation between like low income areas have a increased risk of school shooting. Like there's not really anything dictating that. Yeah. So I think if you kind of just have one in each school, it's a start.
Yeah.
No, and I think and I think in terms of like teachers, like, look, I think if a teacher wants to have like pepper spray or like pepper gel or whatever, like, I think that would be a great idea. Because look, let's face it, like if there was a shooter running around and you can catch him in the face with, some pepper spray that's going to slow things down, and it's not a gun. It's not going to create as much consequences as a teacher capping a student.
I'm a teacher. I'm not carrying anything in the classroom. I had seventh graders who could kick my ass when I taught seventh grade. Only thing I'd be down at that school, I'd be down to be like dropped in a bulletproof cage, and I could teach from the cage. That's about it. But when it's a dangerous situation, nothing's gonna help you. It's a dangerous situation. Like I don't know. And teachers, that's a lot to ask. Teachers are already like nurses, therapists, mentors, sometimes teachers, whatever. But that's just something more to ask, and that's a lot. But at the end of the day, I think we're trending that way, and I think we're gonna start seeing this program like piloted more and more. And unfortunately, it's probably going to take like a disaster to happen before we're like, this is probably not a good idea.
Well, and this really got me thinking, because, with the war in Ukraine going on, I know this seems sort of unconnected, but bear me out. It just sent $40 billion in arms to Ukraine. And that was before the Uvalde shooting. And after that happened, I was like, I cannot justify, in my mind, sending them another dime while we have obviously glaring problems here. That $40 billion, I think someone did an analysis, it could basically have paid for 1 year of having a former veteran or retired police officer in every single school in America to just be a security guard that basically walks around with a gun. And you know what? Would that work? Will that help? I have no idea, but I know that I'd rather spend money trying that than just basically dumping a shit ton of weapons into Ukraine that are also now, the other thing that's being talked about is if you think all these weapons are just making it onto a battlefield, and that some of them aren't being put in storage lockers or making their ways into black markets, I guarantee in the next 2, 3, 5 years, you're going to see the spread of small arms, and in some cases large arms, all over Europe.
Yeah,
they're going to be everywhere.
Thing is too that a lot of people I feel would argue is but when we give money to Ukraine, it would actually it's going to come back to us in some way. We'll get wheat deals, or we'll get whatever. People will argue that, I'm sure. But the thing is, what people don't seem to realize is we'll get it back if we invest in our kids too. We'll probably save a lot of money in God knows what, and we'll have a lot more production from these kids as they grow up, if we actually have a safe environment where kids learn instead of whatever's happening right now. That's my opinion, at least.
What do you think, Sid?
And closing thoughts, Sid?
At the barest, most callous, to piggyback off of you, Jeremy, that's 40 kids that don't die and then grow up and pay their taxes and contribute to American society that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to argue that, though, we're probably stealing wheat from some factory in Ukraine that's going to make up for more than those 40 kids' taxes, right? I don't know. We did that in Iraq. I imagine. I'm assuming we're kind of in places for more reasons than we see. So it's if we went to the Middle East for oil, I feel we might be going to wherever, Eastern Europe, for some other reasons as well too.
Possibly also still oil.
And possibly oil, yeah. I think there's I think there might be big lithium deposits actually there, which is very important for electric vehicles and all that development. So that could be another factor. Who knows?
Yeah, they currently it's one of the largest natural gas deposits in the entire world. I think is actually specifically in that eastern part of Ukraine that Russia is trying to take over. Now, apparently it's really, really, really hard to get, just from the geological nature of how it's held. So it would require crazy fracking techniques that don't even necessarily exist yet. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, but the thing is, it's I would be more happy. I would have no problem selling Ukraine all these weapons we're giving them. I have no problem with that, but we're just giving it to them. We're just look, if we want to put them on a 60-year repayment plan, I mean, shoot, I think literally England and other European countries, I think they literally paid off their World War II debt 20 years ago.
Yeah, and then too, we're giving them when we don't even really have so many a surplus. I saw that we're giving them, and it's going to take us years to just restock the supply that we've given. It's not we just have these extra that we don't need. which is just something interesting.
Look,
But
and these arms manufacturers are just printing money now. Like they're just look, if there's any winner in any war, it's always the people that make and sell guns. I mean, there's some great movies about arms manufacturers, and it's like, yeah, there are people that are literally supplying weapons to both sides in various conflicts around the world. And look, weapons have to exist. It is the way of the world. So, but it's like it just seems so absurd and so gross when it's just like there are people sitting back and like Raytheon, who it's like, oh yeah, we get to give Hellfire missiles to these people and just watch them blow each other up. And the faster they do it, the faster they have to reorder. Like,
I mean, the U.S. is probably the biggest arms dealer in the world, and they supply a lot of times weapons to both sides, like which is super interesting. We give like better weapons to one side and a little worse weapons to the other, and we watch them fight. Pretty interesting. But that's about all I got today. Sydney, I had a blast having a guest on. It was good hearing an opinion other than Todd, because he had but yeah, thank you so much for coming on. We'll definitely have you on again in the future if you are down. Hopefully you are. And that's about all. I hope you guys have a good rest of the day. Later.
Peace.